Well, unfortunately, we are unable to reach Martina there, but subsequently we'll bring you details of that petition presented by the workers and what management is also saying about this situation here on your JoyNews channel. Now, extending lockdown to farming areas may affect the country's planting season. That's the warning from former rector of GIMPA, Professor Stephen Adjei. He explained that on the Super Morning Show yesterday. He says a lockdown in farming areas could affect food production in the wake of COVID-19. Whilst pondering on this advice, there are also concerns that the manner in which the country's case count is soaring could force a total lockdown without say. What options are available for farmers in the event of the unexpected as far as food security is concerned? Joining me for some thoughts on this is the General Secretary of the Ghana Agriculture Workers Union, that's GAW, Mr. Edward Karewe. Thank you very much for your time here on News Desk. Now, before we start the conversation, I want us to hear from Professor Adjei on what exactly he has been saying.
We must be very careful not locking down the whole country, because this April and May are critical planting seasons in the rural areas, and our people must plant, or else next year we all die, not of COVID but of hunger. So please, our farmers, go ahead, plant, and do Ghana a favor by doing 50% more farms, so that we will be able to become, at least food-wise, self-sufficient.
What about the danger to us in terms of the spread of the virus, if these people are still going out and carrying out business as usual?
Well, I think that in the cities we must be very careful, but I think that in the rural areas where the farming is taking place, the danger is not that much, because they don't congregate as we do in Accra. And I think that we must, at the next round, probably look at another way of lockdown, because when you go to Bukom and some areas, they still move about. But rather, we should make sure that within their area, they don't go out, in and out. If there's no infection there, we send food to them, shops there. So we have to look at it. It's a very, very serious one. And if we get a community spread in the high-density areas, then God help us.
Mr. Karewe is with us on the line. I don't know what you make of the thoughts of Professor Adjei on this issue, sir.
Yeah, let me say that the professor has raised a critical part of it, and then of what is happening. If we extend the lockdown to the other regions, we can trust that we are running ourselves into a very dire situation now in terms of food security and food production.
But we have been assured by the buffer stock, by the Minister of Agriculture, that we have enough stocks that will sustain us for the period. And so what is the fear?
Well, the debate should not be about whether we have got stock, we have got enough food in our buffer stock, warehouses and so on.
Yeah.
The debate should be whether that food is available to the population. You know, we have seen that in the lockdown in Accra here and then Kumasi, particularly in Accra, our markets are virtually empty. We had expected that the food that is at the warehouses, which we have been told, will have been brought to supply us in the lockdown areas here. But even if we have food today, the fact that farmers are unable to go to work, will eventually lead to low production. But in any case, the food that is at the warehouses do not belong to the farmers. How to even get it to the farmers will be a problem, because the rural population, they don't even have the money to go and buy that food, and that food is not going to be given to them free. So certainly, we just have to be very, very, very careful. We do not do anything that will end up making it impossible or difficult for us to continue farming.
The major concern of Professor Adjei is that we are in a planting season, and that a lockdown in these areas, the farming areas, could affect, food security or food production post-COVID. That is, if we are able to, endure this, if you're able to contain this even beyond June. Now, what are the options available so that whilst we are trying to contain the spread of this disease, we can also assist the farmers to go about the planting in order to forestall any form of, food shortage in the future?
Well, what we need to do is to first and foremost also fashion out an educational program that is targeting the farmers. Look, it will surprise you to know that when we even talk about farming, there are people in the lockdown areas who are doing farming outside the lockdown areas in the other regions. You need to have a pass to move around. If you don't have a pass, you will not even be permitted to go out and do that farming. But then, if you also look at the number of people, those that put as the frontline workers in this fight against the COVID, agricultural workers are not included. Mm-hmm. And the extension officers are those who are in interaction with the farmers.
Okay.
So they need to be trained in such a way that they can send the direct message to the farmers. Unfortunately, whilst we are about to do that or doing that, you'll find out that social media is fraught with all manner of information, which most of it is misleading because it does not address the core issues of the COVID. There's embellishment, there is misinformation, there's fake and all that. So what we need to do is to get the frontline workers as in agriculture, the extension officers. The next thing is that that we are already having a subsidy which is covering seed and then fertilizer. But they are not the only critical inputs for agricultural production. We have land preparation. We also have other chemicals to buy which are not covered at all. Now, the government has to step, and then how would government step in this way? We are also aware that government has obtained some money which is going to be used for, or set aside some money to be used for COVID. Part of that money should be used to target the farmers and give them support in terms of chemicals and then in terms of other monies for preparation of the land.
Well, we have heard from the Agric Minister. He says that some amount of money has been allocated for poultry farmers, for instance, for those in, the grains as well. We're talking of maize and sorghum and all of that. Shouldn't that suffice?
It's not. We can see that we have to move at what is the policy to now implementing the policy. Mm. And the realities on the ground are just there because all along farmers have been dependent on small microfinance sources of funding their agricultural production. And given the fear and the slowdown of the economy, those businesses themselves do not often have money because they are not operating. So you can see that the sources of funding for agriculture, which farmers used to go to, has shrunk. And the Ministry of Agriculture will have to now identify this as a huge gap and try to fill it in. But if they say they have provided money for that, let's be certain that the money is enough and then also it actually reaches the target group.
So you talk about education using the extension officers, you talk about subsidy of fertilizer and the provision of certain chemicals that you need to purchase, which government must facilitate and make available to you. Beyond these, what more can be done?
Well, we also need to create market for them. Even though there are only 2 regions that have been locked down, generally speaking, Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi has been locked down. They constitute the bulk of the market for agricultural produce in this country. And because there has been a slowdown in terms of how to send the food to these lockdown areas, it has led to a low demand in the of food in the rural areas. So what will it suffice a farmer or mean to a farmer who produces and will not get the market? So we need to create the market for the produce that's already there, or also get the farmers to know that when they produce, there will be a market. Because as it stands now, prices of goods in the rural area is also getting high because, and then some of the produce that farmers already have is getting wasted because they don't have market for it. And these are the market nuances that we also need to deal with to give confidence to the farmers, and then also to actually address their the real economic challenge facing them. That yes, when you produce, you can get the market, even though there have been a lockdown in these areas, which has constrained your major source of market. We need to create an alternative source of market for those people. Otherwise, they are afraid to produce, and when even they produce, there's no market there. And that will overall lead to the food crisis, because they will no longer want to produce. And if we don't have enough, then of course, all of us know what it will mean by way of pushing up prices.
Mr. Karawa, thank you very much for your time here on News Desk. Edward Karawa is the General Secretary of the Agricultural Workers Union, bringing us some thoughts on a lockdown and what that will mean for our farmers going forward.